What are the greatest paintings of Western art history? Who made these paintings? What makes a great painting? How do these paintings reflect the society in which they were created? My name is J.S. Bird, and I am going to take you through my selection of 100 great paintings from Western art. By Western art, I mean art that evolved from the Greco-Roman tradition and was created across the centuries within Europe and the US for the most part. These will not necessarily be the most famous paintings, and this will not be the same standard list you may have seen before. For example, there is no Mona Lisa, no Last Supper on this list, to name a few. But we will examine great paintings nonetheless. Some you will have undoubtedly seen before, and hopefully some or many paintings you may not be familiar with or have never seen. Throughout this series of videos, I will be covering 10 paintings in each of 10 separate videos, spanning over 10 centuries of Western art. We will explore why each piece was chosen and what makes it stand out in terms of aesthetics, form, process, and/or socio-political meaning. A little about me: I am a practicing professional artist and a professor of painting and two-dimensional art for nearly 30 years. Thus, I have a wealth of information and experience to draw from. So join me on this journey as we uncover the stories behind these masterpieces and understand their impact on the society in which they are created and how they may have changed art or the way artists thought about art. Let's discover together what makes these paintings truly great. So here we go, starting with painting 100. This is Tyrol by Franz Marc. 1915, World War I. So this is the beginning of modern expressionism, German expressionism. And here we see a landscape with a mountain and creatures, and it's being shattered, blown to bits. It's a cataclysm. Very much related to World War I, the first cataclysm of the century. And to create this cataclysm, Franz Marc is utilizing what we call synthetic cubism. And the goal of synthetic cubism is to sort of break down the standard relationship between figure and ground or subject and background so that each part of the painting is equal to each other part of the painting. And as you look at this painting, you can see that. You can see how red, blue, yellow, green are all equal. It's kind of hard to tell what is space, what is mountain, what is object, what is not object. We can see these two creatures down there that are either caught up or trying to flee this cataclysm. But the goal here of sort of shattering conventional pictorial relationships is very effective in terms of creating this kind of cataclysm. And this is really the first time Western artists are experimenting with form and color as a way to express meaning rather than just illustrating meaning like in a photograph. 99, Camille Rose Garcia, The Hydrant of Babylon. Now this is from 2009, so we have our first contemporary painter of this list. And by contemporary, I mean a painter who is working now, creating now, currently. Camille is a terrific draftsperson. By that I mean their ability to draw form and use line and shape is really outstanding. You can see those really cool serpentine black shapes against that bluish purple background. And then this ability to create these weird Disney-esque, but Disney-esque on acid forms and critters, and she creates these really weird landscapes of made-up creatures. Very unique, both kind of flat, but also hinting at a kind of depth. We see very thin, drippy painting. We also see very flat, clean painting in the same painting. And the other thing I want to say about Camille's work is her use of color. She is a wonderful colorist. Here we have this analogous blue-purple painting with that red accent. And what that red accent does is it creates a kind of discord with that purple-blue ground, which creates what we call visual tension, the energy of that color relationship where it's that hot against the cold, and it really sets off those creatures from the space around it. Really wonderful use of color in this piece and all her work. 98, Franz Kline. This painting is from 1956 and it's 80 by 100 inches. So I'm showing it in context with these two children looking at it to give you a sense of scale. And one of the things I used to ask my students when we were looking at work like this is, what is the largest brushstroke you have ever made? Right? Because these brushstrokes are 100 inches long. They're going across that canvas. They are large, they are aggressive, they are bold. There is no hesitation here, right? This is a very gutsy painting. It is in your face, and what you see is what you're going to get, and it's very, very direct. And there's that strong balance between black and white, figure and ground, sort of reducing painting down into its component parts, right? We have a figure, we have a ground. In other words, a subject, background. We have dark, we have light. We have shapes. We have here and there, this and that, and that's it, right? One of the goals of modernism painting is to sort of break down painting into what it actually consists of. Now, of course, this is part of what was called the abstract expressionist movement, which was the first time the United States really sort of took the lead in terms of contemporary painting. This was revolutionary work at the time. It was a reaction to World War II and existentialist philosophy. And we're going to see more examples of abstract expressionism as we move along. 97, William Blake, Death on a Pale Horse. Now you notice this is 15 by 12 inches. So as opposed to that large scale, abstract, challenging painting, we now have this small, intimate, illustrative work on paper. Very much different in intent and scale and scope. Of course, William Blake was kind of a visionary poet, very much into mythology and history and the Bible. And so this piece, what I want you to notice about it and why I chose this piece out of his many works is just the linear quality, the beautiful arcing line that's going in opposing directions and opposing movements, and some are clean and clear and other lines are sketchy, and then there's long lines that delineate form, but there's also shorter lines that create texture and surface and movement, and how it creates those elegant motions through line and form and shape, moving upward through the picture plane from left to right. Here we see one of the horsemen of the apocalypse, Death, riding a pale horse, and he has presented Death as a king. Make of that what you will. It is interesting, though, how oftentimes you can see something from another time, a completely different culture, place, time, and yet it can still be relevant to what is happening now. It's kind of this archetypal concept of what humans deal with and the worlds that we create. 96, Richard Estes. A painting from 1970. This is 48 by 66 inches. A large-scale easel painting. Now, this painting of 1970 is in some ways a direct response to the Franz Kline painting from the 50s. So in the Franz Kline painting, of course, he's endeavoring to create a sort of metaphor. This painting has no metaphor. This painting is not symbolic in any way, and it is certainly not abstract. It is a direct reaction to the abstract, right? And in some sense, this is part of the beginning of what we call postmodernism, meaning after modern painting. And so one of the things artists did in the 70s was return to a kind of realism. Now, the interesting thing about realism is that it's an absolute lie, right? We say, oh, it looks real. But the truth of a painting is there's nothing real about it, right? There is no glass. There is no cement. You can't go in it. You can't order anything. There's no people. There's no depth. It's absolutely flat. So realism is actually illusionism, right? It's a lie. It's an illusion of something that it is not. And of course, this is an outstanding example of representational or illusionistic art. And one of the things that this artist was so interested in was glass, right? And the reflections of the glass. And so when you look close at the glass, he's painting both what's behind the glass and what's reflected in the glass at the same time. And if you think about that, that is super complicated because you're sort of painting two things at the same time. And how do you separate them and how do you mix those colors and those values to get that illusion of reflection? So it's not just that it looks like the world, but it looks like really complicated parts of the world. Reflections in glass. 95, Vittorio Crivelli. So now we're going way back in time. A Virgin and Child painting from the 15th century. Now this painting is not very big, right? 14 inches high. So think about that for a minute. So here we have 5 full-grown human beings in this 14-inch high space. So they are only about 10 inches each, those people. And so think about the kind of attention to detail and the smallness of how this artist works. And I don't mean small in a bad way. I mean the focus of small shapes, small forms, small details, small brushes, small strokes. To not only paint those 10-inch people, but then to paint the details of each of those 10-inch people. Like the halo that Mary, right? Her halo, her crown, the jewelry, the patterns of her robe. And sort of like each part of that painting is painted with that painstaking care. This is a reverential act, right? To make this painting is a reverential act. So the painting has a reverential quality both of its imagery and of the act of painting. And I think sometimes we've lost that in contemporary work, where someone sort of just gives themselves over to that image, to that vision. And I don't, and the other thing about a painting like this, I'm not exactly sure people have the attention span anymore to actually make a painting with that kind of detail, or the previous painting, as far as that goes. 94, Juan Quick to See Smith. Trade, gifts for trading land with white people. So here we have an image created by a native artist. And interestingly, this painting is painted in a very Western style. This is painted in a kind of expressionistic, drippy, almost abstract, expressionistic kind of style, although it is not abstract, though it is expressionistic. It's painted in a triptych, which is also a Western tradition, right? We're going to see many triptychs as we go through these paintings, which sort of refers back to altarpieces. But in this case, we have a Western style of image, but about indigenous issues, native issues. And so all those elements we see strung above the painting, those found objects, what we call found objects in art, referring to stereotypes and issues of Native people and sports teams who have adopted Native names. And again, this is from the 70s, so you have to put it in that time construct. And then below, there are many images collaged in that have to do with the actuality of indigenous issues or environmental issues or political issues of the time, or related to the actual experience of Native people. And then, of course, we see that canoe sort of holding it all together, sort of a vessel, right? It's the canoe is the vessel which holds all of this information. And of course, the canoe is, an object that has been adopted by the dominant culture. So there's that kind of juxtaposition between reality and what's been co-opted on many levels in this painting. '93, Giovanni Bazzi, Ecstasy of Saint Sebastian, 1525. This is actually a dual paneled painting. There's a painting on both sides. We're only seeing one side. And this is a dominant motif during the Renaissance. Saint Sebastian was a martyr that was tied to this tree, or tied to a stake or a tree, depending on the painting, and shot with arrows. Even though he didn't die from all those arrows, he later became a martyr through an illness and became a sort of a saint of healing and illness. And many, many artists painted the Ecstasy of Saint Sebastian. And there's a lot that people have written about this, and there's a lot of art that has sort of been in dialogue with this motif in modern and contemporary art. So there are many to choose from, and I picked this one because of the angles of this painting, right? So we have this sort of ecstasy, but death at the same time. There's eros, but then there's also death and pain at the same time. That sort of mix, that sort of spiritual mix of emotions and experience. And all the angles of this painting just create that sensation. So we have the angles of the person, Saint Sebastian himself, with his arms behind him and his torso twisted and his legs bent in different angles and his head bent, and the angles of the arrows, but then that is continued through the angles of the tree and the branches of the tree and the trunk of the tree. It is continued in the angel, right? This is not a round cherub angel floating in the sky. This is an angular angel where, again, everything, elbows bent, wrists bent, knees bent, feet bent, ankles, to create that sort of tension, that agony. And then even in the background, you'll notice there are an excess of angles, the angles of the hill, the angles of the cloth, the angles of the people in the background, the angles of the trees, the angles of the horse legs, everything creating that twisted sense of tension, the tension of form, to create that feeling of sort of spiritual agony. '94, George Inness, Landscape with a Yellow Bush, 1885, 12 inches by 18 inches. Interestingly, as a contemporary artist, I find it very difficult to paint small or draw small. And what's amazing about George Inness's work, which has always struck me, is how big his paintings feel, even though they're tiny. They're like little jewels of color and paint. I mean, he loves paint. He's like the Rembrandt of landscape artists, where he builds those layers of texture and color, and the colors interact with what's underneath and what's on top and what's underneath, and what gets scraped away and what gets revealed and what gets dragged over top to create texture and richness of color and density of brushwork. And like that gold color, like it's so warm. And his greens, even though green can be warm or cool, his greens are so warm and inviting. His paintings are so inviting. Like, who wouldn't want to go there? And those floating gold flowers and bushes, of which the painting is named, just gorgeous, just jewel-like. And so Inness is not some major artistic figure who changed how we think about art, but he just made really, really beautiful little paintings. And that's why he's here. Sort of a personal favorite. Last painting of this group, 91, Frank Stella, The Marriage of Reason and Squalor. 1959, notice the size, 7 foot 6 inches by 11 feet. That is a big painting, people. Much larger than you are when you look at it. You are enveloped by this painting if you stand in front of it. And what do you see when you stand in front of it? You see black stripes that are all the same size doing all the same thing. Right? This is what we call minimalism. Well, I'm not sure Frank Stella would say it's minimalism, but we're going to put it in the category of minimalism. This painting is interesting in that there is only one artistic decision made. Right? The artistic decision is, I'm going to make black stripes following a pattern. That's it. There's no other decision to make. There's no decisions about color relationships, no decisions about compositional relationships, no decisions about surface relationships, shape, edge. It's all, it's all predetermined. It's like a blueprint. Each stroke determines each other stroke. And so that is the reduction of painting, right? The reduction of the decisions a painter must make. And this too is a kind of reaction against abstract expressionism, right? Abstract expressionism was such a major movement that artists are still reacting to it to this day. And so we're denying any sense of symbolism. This artist is denying any sense of content. This is what it is. It is flat marks on a surface to reduce painting as far as it could be reduced. So, I hope you enjoyed the video, maybe saw something you didn't see before or learned something new. If you are interested in these videos, please like and subscribe. Love to get more subscribers so I can continue to make these videos and take us all the way to painting number 1. So thanks for tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you next time. And bring a friend next time.